Hello, and welcome to Fearfull Wickedness. I am your host, the storyteller. We hope you enjoy tonight's tale. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment. I have replayed that night 1,000 times, trying to convince myself it was a hallucination brought on by exhaustion or stress. But the truth is colder, older, and far more deliberate. What I saw, what noticed me, has been following me ever since, teasing me with glimpses in reflective surfaces, whispering inside my dreams. I have not slept more than an hour at a time for weeks. If this journal is found, let it be known, I didn't go mad. I was hunted. It began in my grandmother's house. She left it to me after her passing. A creaking, age-warped place buried deep in rural Missouri. She always said the house was thin, like the walls weren't fully part of this world. I thought it was nonsense. Folklore. The ramblings of a woman who lived too long in isolation. I was wrong. The first night there, I caught movement in the bathroom mirror as I brushed my teeth. Something behind me, something tall, too tall, standing in the corner where the shadows never reached the floor. But when I whipped around, the corner was empty. I told myself it was a trick of the light. The second night, I saw its outline again. Not directly, only in the mirror. It did not move or breathe. It simply was, as though a part of the room had folded inward to create its shape. The third night was different. I went to wash my hands at the kitchen sink after unpacking old furniture from the shed. The window above the sink reflected my silhouette in the moonlight, and behind me, outside the back door, something towered over the porch. It had no face, no features, just a stretched, vertical mass of darkness shaped vaguely like a man wearing clothes sewn from shadows. I froze. My heart hammered against my ribs. I turned slowly, expecting to see it staring through the glass door. There was nothing, but in the reflection, it leaned closer. Its featureless head touched the window. I stumbled backward, knocking a chair over. When I looked again, the reflection showed only me, alone in the kitchen. That was the moment I should have run. Instead, I stayed, because I thought I needed answers. Grandma's attic had a locked chest she always told me never to open. The key still hung from a nail inside her closet. I went up after midnight, flashlight shaking in my hands. Dust filled the air like a fine mist. The chest creaked open as though something inside had been waiting. Inside were old journals, hers. The last entry was written a week before she died. It lives in the places where light fails to touch the world. It watches from the reflections first. Then it steps through. Only one thing keeps it bound. The mirror my father fractured. Never repair it. Never face it whole. Below that entry lay a mirror. Its surface cracked into 4 jagged sections. The breaks were old, delicate like frozen spiderwebs. The moment I touched the frame, I heard footsteps downstairs. Slow, dragging, impossibly heavy. They stopped at the bottom of the attic ladder. Then the ladder creaked. Each rung sounded like bones snapping as something climbed toward me. I dropped the mirror, and the cracks widened. I didn't wait to see its face. I bolted past the shape rising through the opening, its limbs too long, too thin, its head scraping the rafters. It didn't chase me. It didn't have to. Because the moment I looked into the hall mirror at the base of the stairs, it was already standing behind me. The lights died. A cold hand pressed against my back. A voice that was not a voice whispered directly into my skull. The wall is thin again. I ran out of the house and never returned. But now I see it everywhere. In store windows. In puddles. In the dark glass of my dead phone screen. It is no longer confined to the house. It is following me. And God help me, the cracks in the mirror are vanishing one by one. I fix radios for a living, or I used to, before the incident that cost me my shop, half my sanity, and maybe soon my life. People don't fix radios much anymore, but in my town, some folks cling to old things like security blankets. One of those folks is a man named Lorne Haskett. Lorne brought in a battered 1970s ham receiver one morning, saying it had been picking up strange transmissions after midnight. Not voices, he said. More like listening. I laughed, because what else do you do when a 60-year-old man tells you a radio is listening to him? 2 nights later, I understood. I stayed late repairing the circuit board, testing the thing as thunder rolled over the hills. Storm nights always brought the weirdest frequencies. At exactly 12:13 a.m., the receiver powered on by itself. Static flooded the room. Then the static shifted, not randomly, but rhythmically, like someone breathing through 1,000 miles of dead air. Something about that noise made every hair on my arm stand up. I leaned closer. A second sound emerged beneath the static, faint scraping, like fingernails dragging across a reflective surface. Then a whisper. I wish to God I hadn't understood it. Jacob. The room felt colder. My breath fogged the air. No one alive knew I was working that late. No one had access to the shop's security system, let alone the radio's internals. My first instinct was to unplug the receiver. But before I could, the static snapped into clarity. A distorted voice hissed. One has seen the shadow. Another has heard the echo. When the third awakens, the gate will open. I backed away so fast I knocked over a soldering rack. Who's there? I shouted, which in hindsight was idiotic. The voice answered. I am already here. My workshop lights cut out. In the pitch-black room, the radio's metal casing began to bend. Not like metal being forced, but like something inside was pushing outward. A black shape rose behind the radio. Not physically. Its form was visible only as distortion, like a human silhouette pressing against thick glass. A hollow figure wearing darkness like a second skin. I bolted. As I fled into the rain, the shop windows reflected lightning, and in each flash, something tall and faceless took another step toward the glass from the inside. By the time police arrived, every reflective surface in my shop, from tool drawers to monitor screens, was cracked from the inside. They called it vandalism. I know the truth. The thing was coming through. Now when thunderstorms hit, my house fills with whispers hidden beneath the static of my old TV. They always say the same thing. One saw, one heard, the third will open. I used to think nightmares were just dreams. That was before I started remembering things I had never lived. Before I knew the name Azerothmal. Before I realized remembering it was a summons. My encounters began with sleep paralysis. At first it was the usual, pressure on my chest, inability to move, thrumming panic. But then a second presence entered the room. I never saw it directly. I only felt it standing beside the bed, too tall to be human, too cold to be real. Every time I woke, the room felt like a mausoleum recently disturbed. The dreams grew worse. I saw 2 strangers I had never met. A young man fleeing a house with cracked mirrors, and another running from a stormlit workshop full of broken radios. I knew their fear. I felt the entity hunting them. Then came the dream that wasn't a dream. I found myself in a place where the world seemed unfinished, dark surfaces rippling like liquid glass. And at the center stood the figure, tall, faceless, wearing a shape like a man but outlined in shadow. It spoke without a mouth. I am the third. The ground beneath me cracked like breaking mirrors. The entity leaned forward, and for the first time I saw something beyond its darkness. Something moving beneath its skin, as though countless hands pressed outward, struggling to escape. It whispered, "Name me." I woke screaming. The name rose in my mind like a memory I had tried to bury, Azeroth Mal. The moment I said it aloud, even alone, even barely above a whisper, I felt reality shift. Because that was its true name, and I had completed the ritual. Mirrors in my apartment splintered. The radio on my kitchen counter turned on, hissing static that breathed. My phone screen flickered with a tall, hollow silhouette behind me. Then two other voices joined the static. Elias Thorne has seen the Hollow Man. Jacob Maris has heard his arrival. And you, Daniel Rook, have spoken his name. As the room darkened, glass cracked open like eggshells splitting, and the entity stepped through, not from one reflection, but from all of them. The walls thinned. Reality peeled. Elias saw him first. Jacob heard him next. I named him. Together, we completed the way. Azeroth Mal is here now, and there is no place left to hide.